First, it was survival.
Yeah.
First it was just, they say if you want to become an entrepreneur, get closer to God. First, it was like, Lord, whoever out there, I don't know what your name is, whether you God, ancestors, universe, creator, source, I don't know, well, Risha, whatever your name is, help. Okay,
Yeah.
that was it at first. Our guest for today, Johnson, the creative mind behind Wine Not, a non-alcoholic sparkling beverage that mirrors the flavor complexity of sparkling wine. Ashley is an MBA graduate from UCLA and has over 8 experience in strategy and business development for leading financial and consulting firms. Alongside her entrepreneurial journey, Ashley is a DJ, okay, what? An independent business consultant lending her expertise to clients in the entertainment, beverage, and hospitality industries. Thank you so much. Welcome to the show, Ashley Johnson.
Thank you for having me. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I remember you from the LA pitch competition. So she pitched at the Black Girl Ventures LA pitch competition and essentially one of our alumni. And when I say her people in the room were riding for her, okay, she won the crowd favorite. I think you won the crowd favorite. Is that right?
I did, yes.
Okay. And the people in the room was like, yes, let's go. And you know what? And I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people told me, came up to me and were saying things like, I'm just so glad to see her, flourishing in what she's doing, because she's been the one that's been really riding for us on campus. That's been the one that's really, pulling us together to do what we do for our businesses. Yeah, I want to give you your flowers because I actually never got a chance to share this with you, but like maybe 3 or 4 people actually came up to me that night and was like really happy to see you on stage for a change, because for them, you're putting them on stage, you're advising them, you're giving them the support, you're rallying behind them, and so they were there to rally for you because you have been doing the thing for them. So I want to say congratulations on your impact.
Thank you. Yes, I had no clue. That feels so special because it's like you never know the impact you have or, the difference you make in people's lives. So it's good to see that not only did they feel that, but they, gave me that same support that I had given them. So it's just good to receive your flowers like that. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, I was like, wow, because like going into it, my team does all the sort of vetting and they do all the like who's gonna be there and that kind of thing. And so when I'm going to the events, that's my first time engaging with y'all. That's my first time engaging with whoever's gonna be in the audience. And so I'm like, oh wow, this is dope. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know that either. So I'm like, this is a special person, and I don't know if she knows it. So I'm glad that
Thank you.
able to share that with you. I hope you know that you are a special person in people's lives.
Thank you so much. That's everything. Thank you.
So you could be doing anything in the world. You could be selling the 7 seas. You could be climbing the highest mountain. You could be, running an orphanage in a foreign land. Why did you decide to launch Wine Not?
Yeah, and it's so important because you touched on it a little bit with spirituality, and it was a journey that I had to go through because, I went to business school. I had this idea. I was a DJ. I worked in corporate. I was like, hey, I'm going to go work for Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, somewhere in corporate like the rest of my client, or not my clients, but my classmates. And I think, I don't drink alcohol. I haven't for a number of years. And it's just kind of like spirituality just got me closer and closer to that, to the impact that I can have on others' life. I remember when I gave up alcohol, and there were a lot of people who saw a lot of inspiration in me kind of doing that. Like, how are you able to have fun? How are you able to DJ? So I always knew there was a place for some community there. I didn't necessarily think it was me, but I think being in the realm of business school and just recognizing my talents, and then just the right time and having the right people around me, I was like, I think this was it. It was scary. I prayed a lot. I was looking for the signs, but they were all there for me to kind of move in this path. And like, ever since I started, I just been getting the signs that this is where I need to be. And so, like you said before, it goes back to that spirituality component and tapping into who you are and what you're supposed to do in this world.
I love that. And I think that, mocktails are taking off. And so I was excited to see someone just specifically in the sparkling wine space, right? Because I think the like first thing people think of is they start creating mocktails that are related to alcohol. Like, oh, we need to,
Yeah.
make it so that people don't feel like they need to drink. Like, and I mean, alcohol meaning like just straight liquor, right?
Yeah.
And they start thinking about how do they recreate that taste or recreate your typical things you hear, sex on the beach or things like that. Like using a mocktail, which I think is great. You were specifically in the wine category where
Yeah.
you don't necessarily see a lot of non-alcoholic wines, even though I think non-alcoholic beverages are on the rise. Where, prior when you were drinking, was wine your favorite drink? Why decide on wine versus going down just like a regular, like some other liquor?
Yeah, and to be honest, when I did drink alcohol, I was a whiskey drinker, right? And so that was my thing. But I think that what I focused on was experience, right? And so I was like, okay, I don't drink. I'm in these spaces. What am I missing, right, from an experience perspective with a beverage? And I'm like, something celebratory, like, hey, I just graduated, or it's the wedding. And I felt like in the alcohol space, you have all of these cool champagne brands. It's almost like a fashion statement to have this bottle and pop it, And I felt like in the non alcoholic space, even though there were some alternatives, nothing gave that experience. I was like, I want something fun, something cool, something that whether you drink or not, you want to pop it. And so that's really what I catered to was that experience and that need in that non alcoholic space that I hadn't seen. And so that's where the whole sparkling wine, like the champagne and the rosé, came into play because I wanted to cater to that experience that you were missing out on from not drinking. And I mean, I like champagne, but it was like, geared towards those celebratory moments. And I found that when I stopped drinking, I kind of lost that. I'm like, okay, I don't want to toast with water. I don't want to toast with ginger ale. I want something fun, just like everybody else.
Yeah, no, it's so true. In terms of that celebration feel. What's interesting about it is I was just recently saying that I don't want to be sacrificial anymore in my life. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to go throughout life being like, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to drink, but but we celebrate now,
Yeah.
and I honestly don't want to hang around those friends the same way that I had before either. So that's something that I'm strongly evaluating in terms of like my connection because I think that like in my family, that's a big thing. Oh no,
Yeah.
yeah, we know we all got diabetes, high blood pressure, but we said it's your birthday. Like, nah, Slim. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, no, it's your birthday does not mean, let's go sacrificial and try to kill yourself real quick. Or try to like put yourself in survival just for
Yeah.
the night.
Yes.
It's like it's just not worth it. So I'm curious as you develop this, especially as someone who now is a non-drinker, what did it take to get the beverage to mirror the flavors of sparkling wine?
Yeah. And so I really did a lot of like studying and worked with a lot of amazing scientists who helped me to craft this vision, but really studied like what did people enjoy about consuming like a wine, right? They love being able to taste those flavor notes. They love that experience, that sophistication, that oh, what is that? Like that's a whole experience to kind of consume a beverage like that. And so I wanted to make sure, and the reason why the brand is called Wine Not, because I tell people it's not wine, right? It's me crafting a beverage that has that complexity. So we made sure that we layered the flavors in the same way that you would in a wine. So you can still have those notes of apricot or oak or, something that gives you an experience as you're drinking it. Cause I love it when people try it and they're like, oh, I taste a little bit of this or a little, and it's like, it's that same experience I wanted to give when you are drinking a wine or a sparkling beverage of that fun piece of understanding the notes and really gravitating towards that. And so I wanted to create that same complexity, but I wanted to add my own little twist to it, something that's different, because I know that a lot of non-A brands, they kind of just like go through the winemaking process and they just remove alcohol. And I was like, I want to be a little bit more creative with it. And I wanted to add some adaptogens to help relieve anxiety or stress. And so it's my own spin to it, right? And it's really something that I look at it as creating a whole new category of what it means to be a non-alcoholic beverage.
I love that. I mean, when you think about creating a new category, because you have all these superstars like Kevin Hart, LeBron James, all these people launching these alcoholic brands.
Yeah.
And in the sense of the way that you are positioned, do you have to think of them as the competitors, or is it just a competition with other non-alcoholic brands, right? Because I think that's interesting around like the way to think about it from a business development standpoint is it like, okay, alcoholic brands versus non-alcoholic brands? Like, is that something that you have to combat? Or is it more like, hey, the people who get it, and I'm just focused on my non-alcoholic? Like, what's the level of like competition you have to think about in the business development of this product?
Yeah, so I would say it's a mix of both, right? So I always say that like I'm going after that sober, curious person. And usually this person, they may drink some days, they may drink, or not drink other days. Like they like, hey, I only want to drink on the weekends, but on these social gatherings, I want something non-alcoholic. So we're not necessarily saying like, oh my God, alcohol is so bad. We understand that people are different at different places of their journey. So it's really offering that flex option. Let's say you're at a bar, you have 2 glasses or, 2 cups of alcohol. And you're like, okay, I've reached my limit. I still want to socialize and have something. So then you can have the why not. But then you have those people who are like me, who are like, look, I don't want it at all. And I just want something that gives me that experience so I don't have to feel left out in those moments. So we kind of do a mix of both. I don't really see myself as a competitor with alcohol brands at this point, just because, I'm not going to judge anyone on their choices. It's just everyone deserves to have the choice, right? Whether you're in the supermarket, whether you're in the restaurant, the bar, you deserve to have that option and let you decide. I just know that I wanted, especially for my community, I wanted to show us that there is another way. As you mentioned, there's so many brands, so many, Black entertainers, athletes, artists who promote alcoholic brands. And I feel like that's great, but just seeing the natural destruction it has had in our communities, specifically in mine with my family, I was like, I want to just show a better way or a different way and give people that choice to make versus feeling like this is the only solution that I have.
Yeah, I mean, were there instances in your family that are a driver behind this? Um, that really sparked you to do it? Like, what was the moment where you're like, because I think there's like, oh, this is nice to have, but like, what really drives you? I heard you mention that family piece, so I'm interested.
Yeah, for sure. And it took me a while to really unpack that and realize that. But both my father and stepfather are alcoholics. They have been my whole life. And I always said that, oh no, it didn't influence me, but I remember when I gave up drinking, I know that I did it to be healthier, but in the back of my mind, I really wanted to kind of end this generational curse. I didn't want to pass this trait down to my children. And I wanted to not just show, my parents, but also my siblings that like, hey, we can shift the narrative. And so it has been an influence. Like I don't think that I know that alcoholism is a disease. I know it's going to take more than a product to stop someone from drinking. But my theory is if you catch them while they're young, while they're developing these habits, you can show them there's a better way or an alternative so that when they are, 40, 50, 60 years old, they're still not dependent on that alcohol like my fathers are, right? They've struggled with it my whole life even though like they're in an age where I feel like they should, stop drinking, but it just shows how much they have been dependent on it their whole life. And even when I asked my father, he says like, he feels like it's his personality. And I never wanted anyone to feel like they needed alcohol to be themselves. And so it's just really giving, younger people that option early on so that they can develop better habits as they progress through life.
Nah, I think that's right. On your Instagram, you quoted Tyler, the creator, stating that he just never felt the need to drink. And that's interesting because the root of where people started is a lot of times peer pressure. A
Yep.
lot of times, like you're in groups and people are drinking. For me, especially for those like in the startup world, there's drinks every time you go. You go out, they're drinking. And it's even to the point where if you're meeting with investors, people, they don't trust you if you don't drink. It's
Yep.
like you gotta like have a drink in your hand, or they need to be able to order you a drink, or people don't want to drink by themselves. Like what? Like it's like if you want to drink, that's fine. Why you don't want to drink by yourself though? Like what if there is a thought of like, oh, I'm not gonna let you drink by yourself, or like, oh, you gonna let me drink by myself? Like then maybe we need to visit that, right? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, if you're thinking I don't want to drink by myself, and that's the reason why you need me to drink, then we need to ask ourselves some other questions around, well, why are you really drinking in the first place? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because if it's, oh, I just self-fulfillment, I just want to, have a good time, then I think that's one thing. For me, I stopped drinking like this year, so I slowed down. But this year, I really am like, nah, I'm good. Is because, and actually not even just this year, but maybe just like toward the end of 2023, is because I don't get drunk. So like I'm doing all that drinking and I'm not even getting tipsy. And then the next day I wake up with like flu-like symptoms. So I think there's like, as I've gotten older, there's something else actually happening in my system
Yep.
that's like either showing being allergic to it, or it's just no longer making me feel like everybody else looks like they're feeling. And then I had to ask myself, oh, that must be why I'm doing it too. Cause I'm just, I want to get like they getting,
Yes.
and so I'm curious about, how do you build community through it?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's what I found is just sharing my story. Because, like you said, right, what you feel is what so many people tell me, right? And they wouldn't have told me this had I not said anything myself, right? And I remember one of the first things I did when like building this business was develop a survey to understand consumption, behaviors, all of that. And a lot of people said they drink because of peer pressure or social influences, just because they're there or they feel pressured to because people are like, oh, why aren't you drinking? And they have all these projections on them. But I found that like what really keeps me going in this business, right, through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship is really the community. It's me sharing my story and those messages from people who feel seen, right? Young people. My team is young, full of Gen Zers. And I'm like, what do y'all like about it? But I had no clue that they felt this way. And they wouldn't have, or I wouldn't have known had I not put myself out there and share my story. So I think like you mentioned with TikTok, right? Just being authentic, right? Showing who you are and allowing the people to gravitate towards you in an authentic, real way. I think that's how you build community. It's just laying your cards out, not worrying about what people think or how they're going to perceive you, because the right people will find you. And I found that way with Why Not. It's like the more I share my story, the more that people gravitated towards me. And so now it's kind of, it's bigger than me at this point. I'm doing this for the people who reached out to me telling me that they feel seen in this brand.
I love that. All right, so we're about to head into the last segment, which is the Ask Omi segment, which means you get to ask me any questions that you want to ask me. But before we go to break, give me, in these last like 2 minutes, what would you want people to walk away from this interview understanding about you or about Why Not?
Yeah, I think that throughout this whole journey of Why Not, I've learned so much about myself. And it's to me, it's about taking something that has caused pain in my life and using it to drive purpose. And so I want someone listening, if you're going through something, it's never the period, it's never the end. But look at that moment or that situation and see how you can utilize that to bring light to others. And so that's really what I did with the brand. I took something that has caused pain for me and I wanted to change it for good or change the narrative of what that pain meant for me and add purpose. And so hopefully if someone's listening to this and they're going through something, they can utilize that or use that fire to build that next path to help others.
Well, you heard all about her and her journey. Now it's time for the Ask Omi segment. This is where we turn the tables and give our founder or guest an opportunity to ask me anything, whether it's about business strategies, personal insights, weekend plans, or anything else that sparks their interest. I am in the hot seat. And so, Ashley, you can take it away, whatever questions you have.
Awesome. So excited. Okay. So you have, reading your bio, reading your journey, you're so multifaceted. You've done so many different things in so many different areas. And I resonate with this because I was the same way. So, how have you been able to stay focused and devote time to each one of your ventures or things that you have been able to do along this journey? Because I know you have a show, you have several shows, right? You have books, you have companies, you have a fan, like you have so much. How are you able to stay focused and devote time to each one of those areas?
What is focus but a set of decisions? Right. And so
Yeah.
I think that, like, when uh, I don't know if there's a way to say that I would be off my focus because I have all these things. But I think that like I have to zoom out and say, what is my overall life purpose? What is my overall mission here? What are the overall things that I want to create? And my mission for my life is I feel very called to do is to create spaces of belonging and self-actualization. Right. And so, and then along with that, like I inspire as a result of being inspired. And so because of that, like I do a lot of things because those things draw the inspiration for me to keep helping the people, keep serving in the way that I serve, in the way that I feel like it's my purpose to create these spaces of self-actualization and belonging. And so I think that's one of the things about, creating Black Girl Ventures. I think there is how do I create a space where people feel like they can see people like them? It's just a container in my set out to build it. Well, if you look at it, if you zoom out, that's really like my whole journey. Whether it was I was a teacher, whether it was I was working in workforce development and also doing some like training and managing a team, whether it was, fast forward to the work that I'm doing with Black Girl Ventures, but also the show. The show is just introducing other people to introducing people to people like them so that nobody feels alone.
Yeah.
So, in everything I'm doing, that's literally it. But like if you look at it, it's like, oh my gosh, you're doing this, and she's doing that, and she over here, and then she have international training women, and she's over here speaking on stages, and she got this award. Those things are the sort of what I want to say. Those are like the sparkles that came out of the popper, right?
Yeah.
So, but the popper is still a very concentrated canon of creating spaces of belonging and self-actualization for people.
Yeah, so they all fit under this umbrella of missions that you've established. And so when did you realize, right? When did you connect the dots that this was your mission, right? Was it instant that you knew that whatever you were doing was all under that, or you had to take a step back and say, hey, what is the common theme here? Like, at what point in your journey did you recognize that this was your mission?
Yeah, that's a great question because it definitely wasn't early on. I think that what I realized is I kept denying the space of being a leader. I kept denying. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be responsible for these people. What? Why y'all asking me? I don't know the answer. Like we all in a group, but why are you looking at me to have to like, and I think that like, and I like to share that part of my journey because there's so many people out there that leadership is not a title. It is who everybody's looking to. You're the person that everybody's asking the questions of. You in a whole circle, but everybody's asking you. And you like, this ain't even my thing. And you naturally have it. And I spent a long time being like, nah, nah, follow me. And even now I'm still like, I'm just being me. Like if people ask me like, oh my God, you were here, you were there. How do you feel about it? I'm like, I just feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't know that I always take time to be like, wow, that was the thing that I did. I know nowadays, so how do I practice mindfulness. So to the how is like I practice mindfulness. I practice I'm always deep diving, like I was saying in the beginning, I'm deep diving on my spirituality all the time. I'm dedicated to having better mindset. Like I never want my mindset to have me stuck. Part of that is inspired by like my dad. Like my dad is so smart, but my dad also doesn't lean into all of his genius, and therefore he ends up in cycles of doing similar behaviors. And I mean, he's doing his thing, you know what I mean? Like he got a job and he's living his life. So it's not that it's bad, but I just realized like, dang, I don't want to be so smart. I don't want to have so many things and miss out on how to like use every part of me. How do I want to use every available skill set that I have to see what it can do. Who knows what it can do? How magical can I be? How many things can I accomplish? So a lot of things have been me sort of testing, trying, testing. And then things just took off, because you kept testing. And because when you test, you get good at testing. I mean, you worked with your beverage and some scientific pieces, so you know what I mean when I say like you just keep testing, and then soon you become an expert tester.
Yeah.
So immediately you start knowing, oh no, this works, this don't work, this don't work, this works. You know what I mean? And so you just now you know. You keep and now that I become an expert tester, Then I just developed that thread into like business. I kept testing a bunch of business things. Then I became an expert at like what it means to generate revenue. So I can't claim to be an expert on all businesses and all industry. Of course not. But when it comes to making money, I'm a money maker. You know what I mean? So like, you want to make money? Let's talk about it. So
Yeah.
I think it just came through like, and again, even with the spirituality piece, you seeing me now, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, girl, I'm scared.
Yeah.
These people might think I'm crazy. I started doing readings on Instagram. They might be like, girl, go back into your lane, just do business. We don't want to hear that from you, you know? But you test it, and I'm like, oh, this is getting a response. Oh, more people sitting me up being like, thank you so much for sharing. I'm grappling with spiritual things. I'm trying to, I want to feel comfortable in myself. And guess what? It's another space of belonging and self-actualization.
Yes.
And I'm like, now you catch me 6 months from now, you know, I might be freaking glowing and dropping down from the heavens. I don't know. You know, but I'm
Yes.
gonna see. I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna try it, and then we'll see what happens.
Yes. And I love that. I love that you mentioned mindfulness because I think, and also the fact that you just do it, because I think that a lot of people have this notion that, you know, these entrepreneurs, these leaders, they have no fear. And it's like, we absolutely have those moments where we're unsure, where we're like afraid to do it, but we just do it. And I'm curious to know like what has been, you know, those things that kept you moving forward spiritually that, you know, because I think a lot of people don't talk about that, what happens behind closed doors. Sure, we have these ups and downs, but we have these moments where something speaks to us and tells us to continue pressing forward. And I want to know, you know, what has been those moments or what have you learned throughout this journey that has like, wow, I didn't, you know, I didn't know this about myself, or this has been that thing keeping me going.
First, it was survival.
Yeah.
You know, first it was just, you know, they say if you want to become an entrepreneur, get closer to God. First, it was like, Lord, whoever out there, I don't know what your name is, whether you God, ancestors, universe, creator, source, I don't know, well, Risha, whatever your name is, help. Okay,
Yeah.
that was, you know, that was it at first. And then I started really honing in on like, who am I? What do I want? What, you know, I started studying and like reading and watching, you know, different books. And there's also like following different spiritual people. There's like this book called All Women Are Healers. And started just really uncovering like, oh, you know, like what kind of things have I been taught that that I could expand what I've been taught. Because what I don't want to do is lean into like what you've been taught is wrong. Is you know, like that's not
Mm-hmm.
it. Whatever you've been taught really kept you at a certain level of foundation for the most part. And it was foundational for you to get to the next step. And maybe, you know, so maybe being where you are wasn't the step you're gonna stay in, but it was foundational. My Christian experience, it was very much foundational. Like my Pentecostal experience, interestingly enough, like as I got to studying more like African centered religions or other like types of spirituality, African centered spirituality or like what it mean, Hindu, Buddhism, like when I started reading into these more and learning these more, I started realizing that what we were doing in the Pentecostal church was very much an extension of a lot of these practices that came from us being in Africa. So I think there's that. And then I would say practically, there was a point. So I grew up Pentecostal from my 7th grade year to like my 9th grade year in school. I didn't wear pants. You know, it was very strict. Step on the crab, break your mama's back. You going to hell. You do anything, you going to hell. Okay. Fire, brimstone, walking on water. You know what I mean? Like it was like, you can't go to the movies. You can't look at this. You can't be around these people. You can't you can't smoke. You can't drink. You can't. Very, very strict. And I followed all of that from about 7th grade to about 9th grade. Then I started questioning, wait a minute, God can't be this small. You mean to tell me there's 7 billion people on planet Earth and God is looking at whether or not I did one thing and now I'm going to hell? Like something about it just didn't sit right with me. So I started when I got so I rebelled hard in middle school. And then I'm sorry, in high school, rebelled hard, went all the way left. Okay. I mean, I was skipping school, smoking weed. I was like, whatever. I don't even know if I care if I lived or died. I'll be honest with you. That's how far I went. And then in college, I went through a period of, wait a minute. Okay, well, let's try to see what the truth is. So I started studying everything I could find. I was going to the library when the library had VHS tapes you could check out. I was checking out VHS tapes of people trying to find the birthplace of Jesus. Like, I was just like, what the heck is the truth? I researched, I was studying, I was reading about Judaism, I was reading about Buddhism, I was reading about Hinduism, I was reading about Christianity. I was like, all these, like, what is the truth? What I found is, one, whatever you're looking for, you'll find it.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, so whatever truth you want to find, you will find something that corroborates that truth. And it says, yeah, you could believe that. That could work. All right. The other
Yeah.
thing is, like, this is all left up to your belief and what deeply resonates with you. So whatever deeply you feel aligned with, that is the thing for you to be going with. And I can't tell you what that is. And I can't tell you whether it's right or wrong. And I can't tell you whether it's not in this moment anyway, whether you should be doing it or not, whether it's conducive or not. But it just really is, who do you want to be and how do you want to be? And those things keep me, those two questions, who do I want to be and how do I want to be? I want
Yeah.
quality of life. I also want to take care of my children. I also want legacy. I also want to see other people push forward. I don't know where that part comes from, just this embedded nature of like, I want to see people grow or help people.
Yep.
I don't know. I can't, I would have to say I was born with it. Like, I remember being in that age time frame where we were going to church so much. And we were like Pentecostal, was church 4 or 5 times a day. And I remember praying, like, God, like, I just want to be so powerful that when people see me, they smile and they feel better. I just want to
Wow.
be so strong in my like spirituality and like serving you that like I want to be people, I want people to feel better when I walk in the room, you know? And I think that like what's interesting about that is at that moment I thought it was gonna be like me being a pastor or preacher or something like that in some traditional sense. But when people walk up to me now, you know, when I'm in a room and I'm maybe the only Black person, or I'm at a table and I'm the only one of 2, 3 Black people, and I speak out, and then people go, "Thank you so much for what you like." That I wanted to say it, but I didn't have the courage, or, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, like I appreciate," you know, like I feel like I'm fulfilling, or God has fulfilled for me what I pray for.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that it was so open ended that it was like you didn't know what you were going to do. You just know the impact you were going to have. And it's just as simple as like focusing on that impact and just making incremental steps forward. You never know what that end goal is or what that path is to where you are now, which I absolutely love. So, are there any daily habits that you do to just keep yourself grounded out of all the things you go through and take on? Because I'm sure the rooms that you're in, the people that you're talking to, you're taking on a lot. So, how are you taking care of yourself in this process? What are some daily habits or rituals that you do?
Yeah, so I have to dump, learn, and pray. Okay, so I'll tell you what that means. So I have I have several journals. None of them are probably chronological because I whatever one I grab for that day, it might get the thing I'm thinking. Okay, so I might have 1 month over here, this day, the next journal that's somewhere across the room got another day in it. So you know when my time has come to ascend and my kids find this, they not gonna be able to maybe tell a whole story about what my week was like, but but I had to journal. I have to write it. I have to
Yeah.
like get it out. Like I have to like, and sometimes it's not even something I'm gonna go back and read. It may like it can't. It's not even legible sometimes. Sometimes I like will wake up in the middle of the night and like something's just on me so much like spiritually. I just grab the notebook and I'm just writing in the dark because just what I believe is that the energy, the kinetic energy between like what you're receiving message wise and the actual writing and that energy is what's creating the manifestation. It's not so much that like God is somewhere interpreting every language that exists, you know, type of thing. It's not that like every ancestor is like knowing every language you can speak. It's not that. It is the connection to the kinetic movement and the energy there that creates the manifestation. So saying that, there's the dumping. So the dumping is like get it out, right? And that could also be other things like for some people that's working out, for some people, you know,
Yeah.
and I've now started to look into other creative modalities like or just things to do. Like maybe I'll take a pottery class, maybe I'll paint something, maybe I you know what I mean, starting to really lean into that more. Then there's the I have to take a moment to study something. So read something. I've been trying to learn Spanish, so I'm about to go to Spain. So I've been like taking this Spanish app. I try to keep a few minutes of that in my morning. And then I also pray. So prayer looks like different things for different people. It may not be get on your knees and say certain things, but it may be you stop and meditate. You just be quiet for a minute. So somewhere throughout my day, now this don't always happen in the morning, but somewhere throughout my day, I got to get these 3 things done. So I also want to share that because like I was sharing about social media, your spiritual practice also ends up being rigor that you feel like you can't keep up with sometimes. But it's like, spread it out to say, just between the time you awake and the time you go to sleep, you are going to do those 2 or 3 things that feed your spirit or your mindfulness. And that will be how you decide to have your own spiritual practice and what that looks like. So yeah, that was a great question. I'm glad you said it. Honestly, it's so interesting because like, while you're asking me this, I'm developing all these things in real time. So like, trying to like, start them, maintain them, and keep them. It's actually not easy when you're super busy and I'm on different time zones, and it can be very challenging with all the stuff that I do. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, we're at the end of our time. That was so great. Thank you so much for those questions.
Yes, thank you for having me and allowing me to ask these questions.
Yeah, and thank you for joining me today.